boys, Midnight Assassin here, back at it again with another GTA 5 gameplay video. So anyway guys, let's get into this. So today we're going to be doing some random things, driving around, and talking about stuff like usual. But today guys, I'm going to be doing a, like a little different thing. Today, I'm gonna be.
I gotta school your ass.
Do not to be talking, Franklin. So anyway, today we're gonna be talking about history. Now, if you guys do not like history a whole lot, that's fine. But I've been doing it for 8 years, practically my whole life. I have been studying history, and today I just thought, why not tell you guys a little bit about history and things like that, because you might learn something. And it's always good to learn something every day, so, So today, I'm just going to be, talking about history, and things like that, and also, pirates, ships, the wars. So if you guys would like to, hear more things about this, I just don't know why I picked GTA 5 for this. I could have done a vlog for it, but, who cares. What the hell? What's this thing doing parked up here? Oh yeah, I parked this up here. Oh yeah, I forgot. So yeah. And, so I'll be talking about the 7 Years' War. That is also known as the War of 1812. And that lasted for 7 years. Also, we'll be talking about World War I and World War II. And also, I will be talking about different ships that I like, things like that. And at the end, if you guys do want more of this, I'll be very happy to, do more of these. And if you guys have any questions that you would like to ask me, like any sort of historic questions about the wars or ships, just be free to ask me in the comments below, and I will gladly, let you guys know. So, anyway, we're going to start off with the war that did change Canada a lot, and that is the 7 Years' War, also known as the War of 1812. And that war lasted for about 7 years, and that played a massive role in Canada's history. Now, back then, Britain and America wanted more land. Back then, everybody wanted more land, because in Canada, where I live, we had gold, and also there's another big thing, the Canadian Gold Rush, and you may have heard of that in your history class in grade 8. Right now we're doing that, and it's pretty interesting. It's always good to learn about the history of your of the country that you're living in. Sure, it's also good to learn about, the history of pirates or ships or, other kinds of wars like that. But it's also nice to learn about, the history of your own country. Because then you could know, holy damn, I didn't know about this about my country. Holy shit. It's always good to learn something. So yeah. The War of 1812 lasted, technically, I believe, 7 years. And it started around, the whole thing, it got close to frickin' 1803, maybe around there. I'm not necessarily sure, but it did get pretty close to around that part. And, back then, Britain and America invaded Canada, trying to take our land. And we said, fuck off. Now, of course we would say that, because guess what? You can't have this. It's our land. You can't take it. So, of course, Britain and America started to fight against us and each other for Canada. Because Canada was worth a shit ton of money back then because of all the, because of all the money and all the gold that we had up in our mountains. And when Britain heard of the gold rush, they decided to come on down and say, howdy, we're here to get that gold. We said, no sir. So, that's what started this whole thing. Because money is worth everything, and it still is, and it was worth everything still back then and today. And that is the big thing. Money turns people insane. And, just, yeah, it turns you insane. So, what I'm going to talk about is just wars. Like, I don't want to be all, like, criticizing, like, countries and everything like that. I do not like to criticize things, and I never do. But, sometimes it could happen by accident. But I'm going to try my best to not say anything, too technical here, because we are talking about different countries and everything like that. But anyway, that war lasted 7 years straight, and Britain, America, and Canada were fighting. And the war, it was a big thing in Canada's history, and you can look it up. That war changed Canada big time, and we won. And we got pretty close to losing there, though, but we made it. Because, us Canadians here, we're strong. We fight. Oh, we'll kick anyone's ass if they try to take our land. Fuck off. No, sir, you're not taking this land. So, that's what we did. Also, let's go to some ships now. And these ships also did come into our country. Now, if you guys have heard of the famous ship, it is the HMS Victory. HMS stands for Her Majesty's Ship or His Majesty's Ship. HMCS stands for Her Majesty's Canadian Ship. And so on, so on, so on. And in Australia, where I'm from, I was able to get this Canadian accent, or just like a normal English accent. I can change it, though. But anyway, in Australia, it was like sort of like the same thing to here. It's like HMAS, Her Majesty's Australian Ship. Then they all go with that. But KMS, that's for German, and the KMS Bismarck was, back then in 1941, the biggest, baddest battleship on the seas that sunk the HMS Hood and bloodied the Prince of Wales in the Battle of the Denmark Strait. That ship was an absolute beast, weighing 50,000 tons. That was the legal limit set by weight treaties during World War I. The ship was armored as fuck. You could frickin' fire 5 torpedoes at that thing. Shit would not dent, because its armor layers were thick as fuck. This ship was massive. It was almost as long as the Titanic, but Titanic weighed 48,500 tons. Straight up. Now, Titanic is a big-ass ocean liner, and she was 882 feet long. That is big. That's a massive ship, standing nearly 20 stories high. 20 stories high. Yeah. Her displacement weight, 48,000 tons. Fully loaded, 48,500. Around there. Her hull spanned 4 city blocks. She had 9 decks encompassing 337 first class. 9 decks, I believe, encompassing 337 first class cabins. I believe 432 second class cabins, and 497 third class cabins. Accommodations for up to 3,547 people. She had watertight doors that could, like if the water level rose above a certain height, watertight doors, they would come down. What else? Oh yeah, her engines was the size of a 3-story house. You know, she had a lot of workers in there. Her boiler room was huge. Everything about that ship was ginormous. Back then, Titanic was the biggest, baddest ship. Well, not the biggest, baddest ship, but you know, it was the biggest ship in the world. And they classed it as unsinkable. And that was a big mistake, because guess what? Don't jinx it. Because then, dun dun dun, April 14th, 1912, 11:40 p.m., iceberg striked starboard hull. Oops, shit. You have interrupted me! Let's just blow this person up. Alright, hold up. We gotta get back in that car. But anyway, yeah. So, her steam engine is literally the size of a 3-story house. That's... like, well, there is a house, like, right in front of me. And, well, that's how big those steam engines were.
Citizens reporting an attack on a vehicle north of Bolingbroke Penitentiary.
Hey, po shit.
So, yeah.
Woo, too close.
Classing Titanic, practically making her unsinkable. To her innovative double-bottom keel, to her 16 watertight compartments, Titanic was considered unsinkable, right? Back then, because, you know, the ship was fucking huge. It was 882 feet long. It was as tall as the Empire State Building if you put her on her stern and the bow was facing up to the sky. She would be as tall, or even a little bit taller, than the Empire State Building. And you can even look that up. You know, this ship was insanely big back then. For a 1912 cruise liner, White Star Line and Cunard Line were going up against each other. RMS, which means Royal Mail Ship. Cunard Line was a different sort of thing. They were all about speed and fast travel. White Star Line was about their luxury and their nice and relaxing cruising, but making ships fucking insanely huge. Now, Bismarck was 872 878 feet long, I believe. Bismarck was almost as long as the Titanic, but it was 30 feet wider and so heavily armored, it weighed almost twice as much. Titanic weighed 48,500 tons completed. Bismarck weighed 50,000 tons, which is pretty fucking heavy. So, now, Bismarck was a battleship, so it would make sense why, you know, it would weigh so much. Now, Bismarck was 30 feet wider than Titanic, and so heavily armored that you could not dent this thing. Like, seriously. It had, like, it was kind of like all those British authorities, because back then HMS Hood was like their golden ship of their navy back then for Britain, because, you know, the HMS Hood was a ship that, like, you know, would just, it was a beautiful ship. Then, you know, the Germans went ahead and sunk her. So then, you know, the British are like, whoa, ho, 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 motherfucker, we're gonna come right at you. So, yeah. And if you heard of this book, it's called Iron Coffins. It is about a German U-boat sailor who's in the war. Now, I'm talking about World War II. But let's go back to Titanic for a second. Now, Titanic sunk on April 14th and between April 15th, 1912. When her starboard side struck an iceberg. She sank in 2 hours and 40 minutes, which is pretty long, but considering all of that time, you know, that's not a whole lot to get 3,547 people off the ship. Now, the Now, Titanic was not fully loaded with people. She had about 2,603, I believe, on her maiden voyage. She did not have 1,547 people. You know, but still, 1,503 people lost their lives. It's pretty upsetting, you know, and only 703 made it. So, yeah. And when they considered Titanic to be unsinkable, well, guess what? You jinxed it. The ship sunk. So, you know, anything can be destroyed by any kind of force. You know, any ship can be sunk. Any plane can be shot down. Doesn't matter how much armor you put onto it, it will eventually be destroyed by some force. Mother Nature has a stronger force than, you know, man-made structures. You know, God, he controls the earth. He has the power to do whatever he wants to his creations, and if he wants to, you know, show people, make them learn a lesson that anything can be sunk. Now, back then, in 1912, people were retarded, alright? Like, I'm sorry, but back then, and we still are today, you know, we're not that intelligent, but back then, people were retarded. If something was big, and if it was massive, and everything like that, you know, they would say, well, this thing can't be destroyed by, like, not even God can sink this ship. Well, guess what? It sunk. In 2 hours and 40 minutes, the ship went down. So, you know, anything can be destroyed by any kind of natural force. Doesn't matter what it is. It will still be destroyed. So, don't always assume that just because it's 882 feet long, it weighs 48,000 tons, you know, it stands 20 stories high, its steam engines are the size of a 3-story house, that doesn't matter. You know, even with 16 watertight compartments that would close if a water level rose above a certain height, Titanic would actually be able to stay afloat. This is what her builders said. She would be able to stay afloat if any 2 compartments of the first floor became flooded. So that means that if Titanic had her 4 watertight compartments flooded with water, she would still be able to carry on, according to her builders. And even at the worst possible accident at sea, Titanic was considered unsinkable. So, dun dun dun. But guess what? She sunk. And then, her sisters sunk. RMS Britannic, which was a hospital ship, but back then it was, you know, your regular everyday cruise liner. Now, Britannic was a little more armored, but she wasn't as, you know, as long as her sister and wasn't as tall. Britannic looked identical to Titanic, but she was not. Britannic was codenamed HMHS, and that means Her Majesty's Hospital Ship, and she would go, and she, back then, you know, this was the beginning of World War I, and submarines were already hunting down passenger ships and cruise liners, you know? Same thing as the RMS Olympic. She sunk, now that was a Cunard Line ship, by the way, and she sunk around 1914, so, wait, no, not 1914, probably like around there. Well, no, wait, that's when Britannic sunk. Lusitania, the RMS Lusitania, she sunk around 1917, I believe, and that was, you know, that was definitely around World War I, you know, so, and that's when German U-boats were becoming a very big threat to ships all over, you know, like there were, you know, people being advised, like, watch out for German U-boats, could be in your area. well, some say that Britannic was struck by a mine, or she sank by a German U-boat. You know, you never can find out. Also, let's move from those ships to now World War One. So World War One, if you guys have ever played the game called Battlefield 1, that is based off of World War One. And that is, you know, that's identical to World War One. And I have not played Battlefield, but I believe that it is going to be like that. That's why I'm going to buy it soon enough, and I will probably be doing gameplay vids on that. And Battlefield 1 is identical to World War 1, and you can definitely tell, because back then, you know, there were the blimps, there were the, back then, you know, rifles, the old guns, the original suits, and everything like that. So, you know, you can definitely tell that's World War 1 right there. And during World War I, that's also the time when Lusitania and the Britannic sank. Yeah, World War I was another big war. And I do not know if it lasted 4 years or 6. Maybe it lasted 3. All I know is that World War I ended around 19... I'm gonna go for 1920... Around 1921. And then World War II started in 1941. World War II lasted 4 years. But 1940, Hitler started, you know, making some weird shit. Doing some weird things as well. Causing, you know, World War II at the start of World War I. And they were starting to build the Bismarck. Now, Bismarck had a lot of, you know, like secrets hidden within it. You know? And it was, and its weight, like its weight Tweety, no, not weight Tweety, what the hell, I sound like Sylvester from, what is it, no, wait, not Sylvester, I sound like Tweety Bird when I said that, like, Tweety, no, the National Weight Treaty, there we go, you know, and that was a law, like, you could not have a ship weighing over 48,000 tons, that was the legal limit set, but if your ship weighed more than that, you cannot set it out to sea. It was too heavy. But Germany kept that weight a secret. They said that the ship weighed approximately 41,000 tons, I believe, or 45,000 tons. But truth, ship weighed 40. No, not 40. It weighed 50,000 tons, and that is heavy as hell. Now, Bismarck was the biggest, baddest battleship of 1941. But when we go to 1945, which I will get there shortly, there was an even bigger ship. And that ship was called the Yamato, and that is a Japanese battleship. Now, World War II ended after the Americans dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. Also, Japan quit the war because their navy was falling frickin' big time. They were losing big time. They had no other choice but to quit.
Of course. Driver should be with you soon.
Sounds good.
Oh, no, wait, why am I calling downtown cab? No, shit. I mean blimp. There we go. But yeah. So,
Atomic Blimp Services, how can I help you?
Do you got any blimps available right now?
Of course, sir. I'll get one sent out to the nearest available drop-off point.
Alright, sounds good.
Thank you for calling Atomic Blimp Services. Goodbye.
bye. That woman. Okay, so there's our blimp. So yeah. That's what happened. Japan had no other choice but to quit the war because their navy was falling big time. Too many of their men were being killed due to, you know, their submarine attacks. You know, they also had kamikaze submarine attacks. They had kamikaze, which was a very big thing, you know, when they would take their, they would take their Japanese Zeros and they would smash them into ships. You know, and all this was actually really sad, you know, because they had no other choice. Like, what were they gonna do? If they lost the war, it would not be good for them. It would be very bad, you know. But they had no choice but to quit. They were out of options. They could not do anything anymore. So, you know, they had no choice but to quit. Oh, look at that. It looks like a car in here. So, yeah. You know, if they kept on going, they would lose, and they would lose anyway, so they just had to quit. Now, let's go to, let's start with 1941. Now, 1941 was a really big war, and that is World War II. Now, 1941, that was the day when all shit broke loose around this world. World War II lasted 4 years, 1941, 42, 43, and 44. And 1945 was, you know, the year when it was all over. And that's when the Americans dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima, and then that ended it all. And you know, there's a lot of books and a lot of stories and everything like that, and videos that you can watch on World War II. But let's talk about our Canadian Navy for a second. Canada had a lot of ships back then, but not a whole lot. We had destroyers, and there is a museum ship. It is called the HMCS Haida. You should go and check it out. It is a amazing ship, and that is a museum ship in Canada, and it's in Hamilton, Ontario, near Bayfront Park, and it's a great ship to go to, and you can learn quite a bit of good stuff about, you know, Canadians' warships, and it's a good thing to learn too. So, yeah. Also, there's a lot of video games of World War II. Of course, there is Battlefield 1, but that's not World War II. That's that is 19. Oh yeah, that's World War 1. Sorry. Yeah, that's 1941, and then oh wait, no wait, World War II. That's 19. Oh shit. Hold up. That's World War 1. So that was like 1930. So no, not 1930. Oh my god. It's still early in the morning. I'm still trying to wake up. That ship. No, what the hell's wrong with me? Okay, fine. Oh jeez. Okay, I gotta breathe for a second. 1914, I believe, was around when World War I started. Now, back then, they had nothing but, you know, blimps like this. Blimps were about this big, and they had guns everywhere around them. Well, not everywhere around them, but, you know, they had some guns here on the front, definitely around the car area, which is in this thing. You know, they would have guns placed in here. And, yeah. You know, so pretty much everywhere where you could put a gun or a gunman, that's what they would have in these things. Now, there were also the old World War I biplanes. Now, those biplanes were terrible because they were just old, alright? They were made of trailer parts, canvas, wings, bike wheel tires, you know, like anything that you could use to build a plane, that's what those things were made out of. But then, you know, when they started moving to, you know, our planes that we see in World War II, those were even more better. So let's go to World War II. Now, 1941, that's when Bismarck was, you know, officially launched. That was her launch date, her launch year. And she sunk the HMS Hood. That was Britain's best ship during World War I. No, oh my god. Well, actually, yeah, it was used in World War I. Okay. You know, and it lasted all the way up to 1941 when Bismarck fought it in the Denmark Strait, because when Britain heard that the Bismarck has broke loose on the seas, they're like, okay, we gotta stop this thing, otherwise it is going to destroy our navy, because back then Germany owned quite a good portion of France, and that ship was going to France. Well, it wasn't directly going to France, but you know, it was making its way to France, and they had to literally beat the British to France. Otherwise, you know, it would not be good if they did not beat them to France, because yeah. So they were heading to destroy food supplies and everything like that. That's what the Germans were doing. That's what Hitler told them to set out and do. And watch out for the British, because you know they have been heard of. The Bismarck has been heard of, so they better be careful down there. Now, on that ship, they were not scared of anything at all. Okay, that was a really, really weird sound. But back then, you know, on that ship, the Germans were not scared of anything, because that ship was, now that was kind of unsinkable. But still, it was sunk, but it took around freaking like 120, maybe even more, torpedo bombers, and everything like that, and about 5 forces of like, I believe they disposed like freaking 4 battleships: the HMS Nelson, the HMS King George V, a couple other cruisers, destroyers, torpedo bombers, you know, all that kind of stuff. They disposed it after the Bismarck, because this shit had to be sunk at all costs, because if it made it to France and got those supplies, that would not be good. So Britain had to do everything they could to stop this thing. Oh shit, Franklin fell.
That hurt.
So they had no choice. They had to literally sink this thing, because if they didn't, all hell would break loose if they did not sink this ship and you know, beat it. And after that, Germany was really, really on edge here, because the second Bismarck sunk, Hitler was pissed. And I mean pissed. So what happened is that when Hitler heard that his ship was sunk, and that all his men dead, but then afterwards, here's the thing. When the British saw all these men in the water, all these German men in the water, you know, dying, because there were also, I believe, sharks in that water. You know, even though it was cold as hell, there's still sharks down there. Well, no, not sharks, but like, you know, it was very cold. It was May, even though it was spring, it was still very cold. So, you know, the British helped them out. You know, they gave them a helping hand. You know, and they rescued all of those survivors. They, you know, they brought them out, and you know, and they became allies. You know, they became friends. Well, not really friends, but the Germans did not tell this to their family members or anything like that, because then, you know, that'd be weird. Hearing that, you know, the British saved you guys. Oh shit, my rear propeller fell off. Oh jeez. So yeah, and then let's go to the battleship Yamato. Now that was a Japanese battleship, and that was Japan's last hope of winning the war, or at least fighting in the war. Oh, good landing, Franklin. And well, that ship weighed, I believe, 76,000 tons. And its guns weighed around, like, and you know, like the bullets, like the shell bullets, those weighed more than the Haida. The Haida weighs around 3,000 tons, around 3,671 tons, I believe, or something like that. Definitely around 3,000 tons. Those salvos, those weighed 4,000 tons. Like, holy crap. this Japanese battleship was fucking insane. It was huge. No one had ever thought that that Japan got back like that, you know, but you can't blame them. Like, you know, they're losing their navy, they're losing their men, you know, but the Yamato sunk by, you know, all these Helldiver pilots, all, you know, a lot. So, you know, that's just how she sunk. Bunch of battleships. The Americans took her down, but it was not easy. You know, like, they lost around, the Americans lost like 14 to 13 Hellcat pilots. I mean, Helldiver pilots. And those are dive bombers. And you know what? I've decided I'm going to be doing a War Thunder video soon enough. So yeah, I'm gonna get that done.
Another big ass mess on my property.
I'm gonna leave.
I gotta train you to shit on the neighbor's yard.
I'm gonna leave this video here. But if you guys did enjoy this, don't forget to leave a like and hit that subscribe button. Also, if you want, you can follow me on Instagram. My username is blackpearl945, and you know, so you can follow me on there. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will talk to you guys on the next one. If you guys have any historic questions for me, be sure to ask me any of those in the comments below, and I'll be sure to answer those as quick as I can. You know, just another heads up, Instagram is blackpearl945, and you can ask me any kind of history question if you want, like about pirates, about the war of 1812, or like any kind of those wars or ships. I will be very glad to answer those questions for you. So anyway, guys, have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you on the next one. Peace out.